Sean, it's been a wild couple of weeks on both our parts. I'm curious what's been happening with you, because 2 weeks ago when we did our episode, it was off of the high of Sean Con, and I don't know if we both just had like a post Sean Con crash or what happened, but the whole bunch of things just kind of collided at once on my end. And at least looking at you this morning, like we both, when we jumped on to record this, looked equally rough. I think for different reasons. But what are yours? What's been going on?
The last 2 weeks, I had one full day trial each week, which, so with a full day trial, that's at least another full day's worth of work to prepare. And that doesn't happen a whole lot where we get full day trials like back to back like that. Usually I have a full day trial once every 2 months. Lots of other half day trials here and there and hearings and I mean, plenty of that. But, so this week, for example, the trial was on Thursday. Wednesday, I was in the office at 5:30 doing prep, and I left at 7 that night. No, sorry. I left at 6 that night. And then for the actual day of trial, I was in the office at 4:30. So up at 3, in the office at 4:30. And then again wrapped up around 6:30, because then when I was done with the trial around 5, my whole staff was like, hey, there are 8 fires we need you to put out right now while you've been doing nothing else but this trial for the last 2 days. So I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. And yesterday was a day of just playing catch up, but I'm exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. That's
Sean,
me.
That's you. There's a little more maybe on my end. Last Tuesday, so I looked it up. The average annual precipitation in Albuquerque is 8.56 inches.
Okay.
In one day, St. Louis received 9 inches of rain.
Oh my God.
The most St. Louis has ever received in any day ever. Not just a daily rainfall record, a daily for any day of the year rainfall record.
Mm-hmm.
Basement got flooded.
Oh.
Not like bad. There are parts of town in St. Louis where cars were floating down the street. People had chest-high water in their basements. Ours was more enough to have a healthy layer of water soaking the carpets, enough to come over the bottom row of the Kalax. I thought I'd lost Elysium. As an example, I didn't. It's fine. I lost a couple of games, but enough to where we had to undertake some emergency basement project and do a lot of shuffling and whatever else.
Yeah,
And then we got another, I think, 3.5 or 4 inches that Thursday. So the ground is already soaked. More comes in. The basement refloods again. Luckily, everything's moved at that point. It just becomes another hassle. And then we had a third, maybe 2 inches of rain that came earlier this week that had a little bit of flooding. Nothing too bad, but just a little bit. So that's a background stressor I'm realizing. And then we had some odd podcast-related kind of stressors that sort of came about in all at once. Due to probably some of the flooding, honestly, Miniature Market wasn't able to get you your copy of Living Forest. And you mentioned that was a stressful period. Not throwing Miniature Market under the bus.
Yeah, I don't want to put them on blast. But so for the review game, you had access to a copy, and I look on Miniature Market. They have 2 copies left. I go to order it. And this is with plenty of time. To get it here. I go to order it. As I'm ordering it, they say, oh, by the way, there's going to be a 3-day delay in processing because of a part of it's like moving warehouses. And I say, okay, I'll pay extra for faster shipping. So I understand. That's fine. And so I figure we'll make it up. A week goes by and I get no notice of of the processing of the shipment. I message you and I say, hey, this is an issue. If Monday at noon comes around and I don't hear from them, I'll email them, see what's up. Well, no notice from them. I email them. They respond within a day. No. It was almost 2 days. And they say, sorry, we're actually not processing any orders right now. We're not processing anything. I forget the date, but it was like a week out. And I'm like, oh, so that a week out would be the podcast release day. So I let you know, and I'm like, what do you want to do here? Like, there have been times when I can blame things on Empire,
yep.
Specifically Rory. There are times when maybe I could have done something a little bit faster. That was not this case, and that made it more frustrating to me. So yeah, that was frustrating. I'm sure that was frustrating for you.
Yeah, but not really, because I knew those factors, because of the communication, because I knew of all the stuff behind it. We've had, as we've talked about on the show, we've had moments where such conflict that, oh no, the podcast might end as a result of said conflict, right? Like over insensitivity, over COVID, over being in town for Sean Con but not attending Sean Con last year. And those are just recent examples.
That was like 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, 3 years, because that was, yeah, you're right, 3 years ago. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So we've had those kinds of things, and moments where we've been upset with each other and whatever else. It's going to happen in any kind of relationship. I had no level of upset, but I had some level of, okay, I got to figure this out. Because you gave me some options. You said do a review with Abby, do a review solo, obviously pushing the show back.
And my plan was, I'm like, at first, before I heard back from Miniature Market, my plan was, hey, let's move it back a couple days. They're going to get my email and they're going to be like, oh crap.
You're Sean Ramirez of the Dukes of Dice. Oh my goodness.
Well, no, but they see my order history, and I think a lot of people, because they're very good. Like I've had a lot of interaction with them on customer service issues, and they're quite good. That's why, again, this is not like, Miniature Market, how dare you? I just assumed that at that point, like, because with a 3-day notice, great, understand, and it had been like 7 or 8 days. It had been 8 days. I just figured they would have been like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, hey, make sure this happens. I mean, that's, sometimes in my office, if something has been kind of on the back burner for too long, I'm like, hey, whatever it takes to get this out the door today, we're doing it. So I figured, let's say they ship it Tuesday, it gets to me Friday, I get some games in Saturday and Sunday, we record Monday or Tuesday, and I figured like we could delay a couple days. Not a full week, not a full cycle, nothing like that. But anyway, that was not an option, turns out.
So then it came back to me. Do you want to do a solo review? Do one with Abby? What approach do you want to take? And I said, yeah, I'll do this one solo. Knowing I had access to the game, but not having a guarantee as to plays. And I think I've provided this context before. Since kind of late in pregnancy, early in Ruby's existence in the world, it's been harder for Abby to have the energy, desire, bandwidth, whatever else, to get in new plays of games. Some of that is just there's more limited time together, more limited time we have to be present with each other as a couple. Some of that is, and to be clear, that's not her fault. Like this, she didn't sign up for a podcast. She signed up for me, but maybe not so much.
Well,
I mean, it's kind of comes part and parcel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as the week went on, so Wednesday night, Jamie's game night, didn't get a chance to play it. And now the options become a little bit tricky. Like, what do you do? And I've pulled versions of this in the past. We had the infamous Margarita incident with the Gaia Project, where I just showed up and told you, I haven't played this. I have played this. I've played this game before. Enough to review it? Questionable. By the way, I'd probably give it about a 3. Is your quick summary of the review.
Really?
Yeah. It's got push your luck, but it also has elements of negative timing, which we've discussed is not being something we're generally always a fan of. It's one of those games where you try and kind of stop someone from winning more than you try and win yourself sometimes. So, beautifully produced game, has push your luck. I'd rather play Quacks. I'd rather play any number of other things. So that would have effectively been the review. Well, then I looked and I said, oh, I've got a copy of So You've Been Eaten handy. So I was going to start with a review of The Living Forest and then have the review get eaten by So You've Been Eaten.
Oh.
Yeah, that would have been clever, right?
That would have been clever.
That would have been clever. And then as the week went on, I didn't actually play that or have time to play that. And I'm trying to unpack for myself, Sean, because there's a lot of things swirling this morning. My job in sales is one of like highs and lows these days. Like you will have weeks where absolutely nothing happens and you feel like a pile of garbage, and you have weeks where really good things happen. And it feels like we had a really good things happen week followed by a really bad things happen week. Because I want to combine this with, we posted the on deck for Living Forest. It didn't get much of a response.
Yeah, about half of the response our normal on decks usually get on the BGG guild.
Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, in case you're curious.
Yes.
Which means our top 6 names are literally the only 6 names we had submitted. And that's fine. We had some good contenders in there. But that weighs on you. That drags on you.
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
Right? Like,
yeah, it's
a weird energy. And so you have that. You also have the fact that this is Gen Con weekend right now, as we're recording this. And some interesting things at Gen Con. The Fox experiment from Elizabeth Hargrave looks fascinating. That's coming out from Pandasaurus. You have Turing Machine. I don't remember who's publishing that, but that's getting a good amount of buzz as a competitive deduction game with some creative takes on punch card components. Seems interesting. So you have this moment where so many friends and folks are just out engaging, reconnecting, and it's a reminder, oh, I'm not in this industry anymore. And I don't remember, Sean, when was the last time you were at Gen Con?
The one and only time, that was I had just started working at this firm before I took it over. So that was 2016, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. August 2016. Yeah.
So not that that's a prerequisite to do a show. I mean, we went to other shows, other conventions. I mean, just this year alone, Sean Con, Cabin in the Woods, Gamers Ranch Retreat, Geekway. This year alone, I've been to more of these things than I have in quite some time as we emerge out of the pandemic. But there is an element of, at a certain point, if you're not talking through the new hotness and there to engage and there to get into it and make connections and whatever else, there's this off feeling about it as a board game podcast. And so all those factors rolled into this morning. I went back about an hour ago as we're recording, and I sat back and I listened to our episode from a year ago because we're coming up on the 8-year Duke-iversary. And I sat and I listened back, and some things hit, some things kind of crystallized. You were talking a year ago about a shift in your approach to the show, how 18xx and Magic and miniatures and some of those things were becoming more of a love, and board gaming was sort of more of a, I do it for the sake of the podcast, and probably somewhat the connection locally, but it wasn't what you were super into at the time. And there was a question of, does the show shift more that way? You had just sent me a Warhammer Kill Team, which I assembled, built, we ultimately reviewed. This was before Ruby was born. This was a couple of months out. Your prediction at the time was the show would last 4 months after Ruby was born. And I mentioned a timing of May being, that would be when I was as old as you were when we started the show, in May of this year. A milestone we passed without me remembering to acknowledge it. And one thing struck me as I was listening to it a year ago. I think the most important thing in how I was listening to this. Because I didn't know what the format of this would look like. I could go in and bluff a solo review of this and it would have been okay. We could have gone through the normal format. I had prepared the double take on Oath. But I listened back to it and there was something that crystallized or was important. Sean, from Dune, what is the litany against fear?
I will not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is a little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over and through me. I will turn the inner eye to view its path. Once the fear is gone, there will be nothing, only I will remain.
What I said, and this is a direct quote a year ago, was in regards to the podcast, fear keeps it going.
Okay.
And part of that was talking about the fear of loss of friendship and loss of connection to you and loss of connection to Albuquerque and loss of connection to the past and board gaming and all of those things. Fear driving that. And what I said at the time too was, I don't want to test that right now. I'm not feeling secure enough. Like, I don't want to lose this thing. And there are, as I was thinking back on it, two things that gave me way more security in this friendship, in us, lasting past whatever. The podcast will die someday, either from us dying a natural death or whatever else. Like, nothing is infinite. But I thought back to you and Raquel coming out to St. Louis and how much that meant and how awesome that time was, and going to see Ben Folds together and going to Visha and showing you barbecue and showing you this place I've been so happy to call my home. The last, now, by the way, 5 years. This month is 5 years in St. Louis. At this time 5 years ago, I was either driving through there or was in Quebec visiting with Melody, my girlfriend at the time, before going to Gen Con, where I ultimately got the job that made me permanently relocate to St. Louis 5 years ago. And I also thought back to Sean Con and meeting your whole group of friends there and feeling so welcome and having a frickin' blast with y'all out there. And as I was thinking back to that fear drifted away a bit for whatever that says. And I want to be clear as I'm saying all of this, I'm talking out loud. Like, as I mentioned, this is something that like crystallized an hour ago. Okay. There's no decision, there's no anything, there's no finality to it. But I know that we kind of sped over a conversation around, as we talked about, the last few years, I've given you the off-ramp. Do you want to keep doing this? Do you want to keep, persisting on? Is this a thing that we should do? And that was the fastest version of that we've had in years, an episode ago.
Yeah.
The fastest. So
Off air.
Yes.
So no one's like, wait, I don't remember that. Yeah.
Off air. Didn't happen. I don't know if this will be on air. If you're hearing this now, something happened or some resolution happened with all of this. And because part of why I told you at the start of this, I want to record this, but I don't know if we want to release it or not, is I don't know how this hits you or your feelings or thoughts or any of that. There's more to what's going on for me, but that's what got me to this sort of first serious thoughts I've had of, is this time to wind things down? It's the first serious time I've seriously considered that or had that in my mind. And it freaked me out, and I was crying, and Abby was not sure why I was crying, and so I don't know how this hits you, but
I know. So here, okay. This is not a good time for me to process this. I almost like, I was so stressed out this week. And different, I mean, obviously work stress and different, like you had a whole other thing going on there. There were 3 clients I came very close to firing this week. Partly for legitimate reasons. Because there's just BS involved. And I could tell that. So when I'm ready to fire a client, my staff is very happy because this has been a problem client, right? They're rude to the staff, or they're lying to us or whatever. And they're like cheering me on. They're like, yeah, do it, Sean. Yeah, send that email. And this time they could tell that I was not that I was overreacting, but they just knew that I was so stressed out. Like all week, I was just in this like constant state of being stressed out. And they're just like, well, why don't you give it till next week? Why don't you give it till after your trial? Uh, and I was like, I was kind of like pissed off at them. I'm like, wait, what? Because they're usually like cheering me on, but they could tell that not that it wouldn't have been a legitimate reason, not that it would have been justified, wouldn't have been justified, but that they just knew I was not in a good place. So I'm, uh, okay, last night, I knew that if I came home, I was just going to crash on the couch, like, and just pass out till like midnight and then be up and be all screwed up. So I went out and I actually played Magic. I went to the local shop, Tavern of Souls, played some Commander, and that was fun. I'm still exhausted, and I don't know. I don't know right now, Alex.
And that's okay. I didn't come to this knowing
Yeah.
either, but it's the first time I've opened the door for myself in some time. And you dismiss it. So there's two ways to think about it. Is it a bad couple of weeks, right? Number of clients on your end, flooding and weird stuff on our end, the review copy having being a whole fiasco, lack of guild participation and concerns there, and kind of lack of validation and feeling that, which I don't want to put it on the guild or anyone. I don't listen to as many podcasts.
I'll put it on the guild. Yeah, let's put it on the guild. It's all the guild's fault.
Great. I don't listen to as many podcasts as I used to because I don't commute. My commute is walking from my bedroom into my office. That's my commute.
Right.
So I'm certainly not as engaged in that way. I still love board games. Literally last night, we had some friends over and we played Flip Ships for the first time in a long time.
Nice.
We're 2 hits short on the mothership. We were so close, but it was a great time. Played a new game with Abby. Played Dandelion, which came in from Board Game Tables. That was on my recent plays discussion. That's so it's not a lack of love of games necessarily, but does one need the other necessarily? And what space does that open? So that's the short-term view is it's a bad couple weeks. Shake it off, rest a little bit, have your 8-year anniversary and the celebration and what that looks like. And maybe this is sort of an early version of that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then come back strong because literally 2 weeks ago, we were as energized as we've ever been.
Yeah.
The macro factors for me that I'm trying to parse out are because there is less opportunity to play new stuff with Abby unless it's an explicit, we're going to review this together as a couple. And even then, it's challenging. And those challenges aren't necessarily likely to subside. There isn't something temporary in Ruby. Those needs only grow, as you can attest with Chewy. Today, she's getting into all sorts of stuff, Ruby is, that she, getting her mouth around electrical cables and getting in behind the TV and just going all sorts of places she shouldn't go. She was starting to play with the kitchen drawers, and that only increases in intensity and time and whatever else. And if it's harder to find space for getting plays in a way that has us be a serious voice in the space, is that harder to sustain long term? And does it become even harder if, for reasons of us not just putting ourselves out there and having the bandwidth to, if there's sort of this kind of steady decline otherwise? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the big picture things I'm ruminating on. Some of them are short term, some of them are long term. And I know there are some similar factors for you, some short term pain and some long term. Here's what the law firm has done. Here where my gaming interests are going. And there may be other things too, but one of the reasons of I'm afraid I'll lose my friendship with Sean and my connection with Sean, I don't have that as a fear or as a reason anymore. And I think that's, for me, that's a positive thing in some ways. But I also know I love talking to you every couple of weeks. So I don't know what that looks like, but it's been a weird morning, and it's been a weird morning for you.
It's interesting because Wednesday night, Duke's night, I had not gone to the 2 previous Duke's nights. The week before, the trial had been on a Wednesday, and so I was just like, nope, I'm going home. The week before that, I wound up getting a game of 40K in sort of impromptu. And then so this actual week, I show up at 6:15. Place is packed, lots of people there for Duke's night, and everyone's already in a game, like in pretty hefty games. And again, I was at work at 5:30 that morning. And I'm like, I've got full day trial tomorrow. I know I'm going in early. I know I'm going in early tomorrow. So I'm just like, well, I'll just go home. I showed up, made some rounds, said hi to people. And then I was like, okay, great. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go to bed at 8:00 so I can get up at 3. So, and it was a weird feeling, especially because I'm like, oh, I really want to go to Duke's night tonight, even though I have all this stuff going on. And I show up 15 minutes late and oops, well, so I don't know. I don't know if those are signs importance.
So I will say this. I have been known in the past to, and that's part of the reason I wanted to say, there's no absolute there's no decision, there's no even lean, really. It was just kind of talking through stuff. When I left Gray Fox, and I feel distant enough from this story to tell it, I guess, but this was when, after the Empire was on Kickstarter for the first time, the campaign launched, it didn't meet expectations, and I was scrambling. I was in another room working on a prototype that we were going to send out to try and get more attention and buzz for this. This is late, fall of 2019, about 3 years ago from now, honestly. It was about when this happened. And there was a discussion in the other room about marketing approach and what went wrong and what to do next and plans and all of that. And I, being the putative head of marketing, was not in the room for that.
Yeah.
And there was a sudden crystallization of, oh, this isn't going well. Like, this, I need to, I don't know what's next, but I need to not be here. And put in my notice the next day, literally. Was there for a longer extended notice, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then was hunting out in the wild for 6 months before I landed at Sapper and that whole other story into BPM. And it was, but it was a kind of a crystallization of things. It happened very suddenly. And I don't know if there was sort of a weird crystallization moment that clicked in, or if this is just, again, like, we need to both sit on it. We need to think about it. We need to whatever else. But it hit me in a really odd way. And I wanted, if it made sense to, I wanted to share that with the listeners so they had a sense of what's going on. Because in theory, the main appeal of this certainly isn't the newest of new hotness. We don't get advanced review copies. It ain't a thing. I think it's the connection in the two of us, and that's the only differentiator that has ever really been important, and the only one that continues. So, but I also did this without discussing it with you. So, there's that.
Yes, there's that.
So
let me ask you this. So, okay, so it sounds like we're not doing a featured review.
No, but we could do a double take if you want. That's easy. I prepped that.
It almost sounds like doing anything on formula seems a little weird.
No, you don't want to do that and then the best of the rest. Like, I already picked out a name too. I think the name Broken Oath fits perfectly. Sean has his head in his hand. Oh man.
Yeah. So for example, on the show image, I mean, okay. Number one,
the show image is just us crying. It's just us crying.
Yeah, I'm not releasing this and charging the patrons for this. That's
no. I paid for what? Your half hour of therapy?
So we're gonna let's call this episode 280A.
Okay. Or episode question mark, like just 3 question marks, maybe.
Well, it helps to have have it line up somewhere. or 279.5 or something like that.
279.5 is okay. Yeah.
Okay. Um,
And by the way, Game Toppers did not sponsor this episode.
yeah. No, I mean, my inclination is we just sort of call it a good
Throw this out into the universe and see what
episode.
happens.
For this episode.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's. I mean, so we were supposed to review. Wait, you didn't even update the show notes. It says Brian Boru.
Absolutely not.
So we were supposed to review
Living Forest with a double take on Oath.
Okay. With Oath, neither of us liked at all. Like,
no, here's the double take on that. I gave it a 1. You gave it a 2. I said, I don't understand how anyone ever likes this game. You said you were playing this and wishing you were painting instead. You liked the ideas, but would rather play Root, was where you came to. There weren't any guild thoughts, but I did pull the 2 most recent BGG reviews, one of which was, Oath is several hours of whack-a-mole until one person can't be bested. It just doesn't make for a good game. And I like the ideas presented in Oath more than I actually enjoy playing the game itself, which seem to align really well with our 2 thoughts, and they are literally, as of this recording, the 2 most recent reviews for this game. Anyway, I would maybe want to close with an invitation, Sean.
Okay.
For anyone who cares, has a reaction, whatever else, identifies, I don't know, like, however you want to react to this, I'm going to open up a thread on the guild and respond there if you want. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I'm still processing.
I'm still processing my own stupid thing I just brought here.
Here's the thing. You know, I can see some people saying, "Oh no, you guys are great. Like, keep it going." I could see other people saying, "Hey, you guys got to do what's right for you." And 8 years is a thing. I mean, that's something. That's longer than a lot of relationships. Trust me, I'm an expert, professionally speaking.
Sean, we mentioned this. I actually pulled this from the notes from a year ago. We talked about the average length of a marriage, which we didn't look up at the time, but I looked up. The average length of a marriage is 8.2 years.
Yeah.
Just shy as of this moment. But yeah, I don't know. And I know I'm not catching you in the best place to know, but I do think it's important to share. So does that make sense? Am I screwing up here?
Yes. No. And I'll be sure to put really like zippy music underneath all of this.
Excellent.
This whole conversation is just going to have really, really fun zippy music. Royalty free.
Oh, royalty free zippy music. Yeah. Well, that's gonna do it. Is that we're gonna call it here?
I think so.
Until next time, there will be a next time in some form.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that would be a shame to not.
This would be a really bad ending to the entire like.
Oh my God. Terrible. Just terrible.
Until next time. This is Alex.
Wait, hold on. Let me say one other thing. Say one other thing. Oh man. Sorry. I know we're trying to wrap it up.
No, I love it.
I have been so painting my Warhammer miniatures lately has created this sort of existential crisis for me about aging. Which seems weird, but so I'm updating these miniatures from like 20 years ago, right? From like 15, 20 years ago. And I'm just like, so wait, I'm putting all this time and all this effort. How long am I going to be playing this game? Like, and in 20 years, am I still going to be playing? In 20 years, am I going to have the ability to paint? And it's been like, and then on top of it, I watched this YouTube retrospective of Babylon 5 that also has some like major existential questions. And so I've been having lots of dreams about death the last couple of weeks.
Oh man.
No, I've been having this like, I guess it's a midlife crisis. I'm not doing anything crazy other than playing Magic and Warhammer and board games on occasion. I did have a new play, a solo play to talk about, but I'll save that.
Okay.
But anyway, So like like death, my own mortality has been weighing on me quite a bit in the last, I'd say, month.
What sports car are you going to get?
I can't afford a sports car with super expensive other hobbies.
Okay, fair. What
my sports car? Yeah, it's what new? It would be a Forge World, some really expensive Forge World model is what I would get.
Okay.
Ooh, or the Horus Heresy box set, which is like $300.
All right, I'm posting the thread now. Are we officially calling this 279.5? And what are we gonna do a co-naming here of this?
I think Broken Oath.
Broken Oath. Okay. Congrats to King Everything is Splendor for the name Broken Oath, which was spelled, by the way, Broaken. Yeah, because it was referencing trees from the Living Forest. So broke in oath. It's clever. There's a lot of oak related references. Good stuff. I don't want to dismiss it. Also, Sean, you've been dealing with Uhura from Star Trek passing away.
Yeah. No, that was rough too. Yeah, Nichelle Nichols.
Did I say Michelle?
I never got to meet Nichelle. Yeah.
Oh man.
I never got to meet her. I saw her, but unfortunately, I was unable to wait in that particular line. At a Star Trek convention when I was like 7th grade or something. So yeah, no, that was very sad. That was very, very sad.
Well, cool. Neat.
Woo!
That's gonna do it for the Dukes of Dice, a zany podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Until next time, this is Alex.
This is Sean.
Oh, this is Alex.
Sean. We'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Hey,
Bye.
it's kind of better the anniversary will be on a 280. It sounds better than like 281. So this was all planned. This was all intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all a giant ruse.
Uh-huh.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.